They told me I was nothing. 3 little voices that cut deeper than any knife ever could. But what they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment my entire life. And when the time came to show them exactly who I was, they never saw it coming. My name is Lily Hayes, and this is the story of how I turned a house full of hate into a home full of love. This story came straight from the heart. If you enjoyed it, show some love in the comments, and if there's anything you think I can improve, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But first, let me tell you about the day everything changed. The grocery bags scattered everywhere. Apples rolled across the parking lot like tiny red planets escaping their orbit. I was on my hands and knees chasing a can of tomatoes that seemed determined to roll under every car in the lot. "I'm so sorry," came a deep voice above me. I looked up and saw him. Ethan Ward, tall, dark hair that needed a good cut, and eyes that looked like they carried the weight of the world. He was crouched down, helping me gather my scattered groceries. "It's okay," I said, even though my knee was scraped and my pride was bruised. These things happen. But when our hands touched reaching for the same orange, something electric passed between us. He felt it too. I could tell by the way he paused, just for a second, and looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I'm Ethan," he said. "Lily." We stood there in that parking lot for 20 minutes just talking. About nothing. About everything. About how the weather was changing and how the grocery store always played the worst music. But underneath all those normal words, something was building. Then he mentioned them. His kids. And I watched his face change completely. "I have 3 children," he said, and suddenly he looked tired. "It's just been me and them for the past 2 years." I didn't ask what happened to their mother. I could see the answer in his eyes. He helped me load my car. And as I drove away, I found myself thinking about him. About those sad eyes and the way he talked about his children like they were both his greatest joy and his heaviest burden. I had no idea that our next meeting would change everything. 3 weeks later, I was at the gas station on Maple Street when I heard someone call my name. "Lily?" I turned, and there was Ethan standing by pump number 4 with the biggest smile I'd seen from him yet. "What are the odds?" he said, walking over. "In this small town?" "Pretty high, actually." I laughed. This time we talked longer. He told me about his job at the accounting firm downtown. I told him about my work at the local library, helping kids with their reading programs. "You're good with children then," he said, and something hopeful flickered in his eyes. "I love them," I said honestly. "There's something pure about kids. They don't pretend to be something they're not." I would remember those words later and wonder if I had jinxed myself. As weeks passed, we kept running into each other. The coffee shop. The post office. The park where I liked to jog and where he took his kids to play. Each time we talked a little longer. Each time, the connection grew stronger. But he never introduced me to his children. They were always playing just out of earshot, 3 small figures that seemed to exist in their own world. Ryan, the oldest, at 9 with his father's dark hair and serious expression. Chloe, 7 years old with pigtails and a bright red jacket she wore everywhere. And little Eli, 5 years old, who seemed to shadow his older siblings like a faithful puppy. I watched them from a distance and felt my heart ache. Not just for them, but for the man who carried their entire world on his shoulders. It was a Thursday night in November when my phone rang at 11:30 p.m. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Lily?" Ethan's voice was shaky. "I'm sorry it's so late. I just ... I needed to talk to someone." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's the problem. Everything is too right, and I don't know what to do about it." I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean?" There was a long pause. Then, "I think I'm falling in love with you." My heart stopped. Started again, raced like a wild horse. Ethan ... double quotes. "I know it's complicated. I know I come with baggage. 3 pieces of very important baggage. But I can't stop thinking about you. About us. About what we could be." I closed my eyes. I've been thinking the same thing. Really? 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 Another pause. Then he said something that would haunt me for months to come. The kids need a mother, Lily. And I need you. What if we just went for it? What if we got married and became a real family? I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted on meeting the children first. I should have taken things slow. Instead, I said yes. Ethan didn't waste time. Within a week, he had arranged for his mother to watch the kids and took me to dinner at Romano's, the nicest restaurant in town. I knew what was coming when he reached into his jacket pocket. But when he got down on one knee right there in front of everyone, I still gasped. Lily Hayes, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. Will you marry me? Will you help me raise my children and build the family we both deserve? Through my tears, I whispered, yes. The ring was simple but beautiful. A small diamond that caught the restaurant's dim light and threw tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. But even in that perfect moment, a tiny voice in the back of my head whispered a warning. I pushed it away. Love conquers all, right? I was about to learn just how wrong I could be. I want to talk to them first, Ethan said as we planned our small wedding. I want to prepare them. So one evening, while I waited nervously at my apartment, Ethan sat his children down for the most important conversation of their lives. Called me afterwards. How did it go? I asked. They're processing, he said carefully. Ryan asked a lot of questions. Chloe didn't say much. Eli just wanted to know if you like dinosaurs. Do they want to meet me? They said okay. Not exactly enthusiasm, but it was a start. The meeting was arranged for the following Saturday at Chuck E. Cheese, neutral territory Ethan called it. Somewhere fun where the kids could be comfortable. I spent an hour getting ready that morning. I changed clothes 3 times. I wanted to look like someone who could be their mother, but not like someone trying too hard to be their mother. When I walked into Chuck E. Cheese and saw them sitting at a corner table, my heart nearly broke. They looked so small, so vulnerable. Ryan sat perfectly straight, his hands folded on the table like he was in a business meeting. Chloe kept glancing toward the games, clearly wanting to be anywhere but there. And little Eli was staring at me with huge, curious eyes. Kids, Ethan said as I approached. This is Lily, the lady I told you about. Hi, I said, sliding into the booth across from them. It's so nice to finally meet you all. Ryan spoke first. Dad says you're going to be our new mom. The directness caught me off guard. Well, I'd like to be, if you'll let me. We already had a mom, Chloe said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. Of course they did. How could I have been so thoughtless? I know you did, I said gently. And I'm not trying to replace her. No one could ever do that. I'm just hoping we can be friends and maybe someday. Family! Eli suddenly spoke up. Do you like dinosaurs? I smiled. I love dinosaurs. What's your favorite? T-Rex, he said solemnly. Mine too, I lied. I didn't know enough about dinosaurs to have a favorite, but his little face lit up and I filed away a mental note to learn everything I could about prehistoric reptiles. The rest of the lunch was stilted, but not terrible. The kids warmed up slightly when I challenged Ryan to a game of air hockey and let him win. When I helped Chloe with a particularly difficult claw machine, I caught her almost smile. Driving home, I thought maybe we could make this work. Maybe love really could conquer all. I was so naive. We kept the wedding small. Just immediate family and a few close friends at the courthouse on a cold December morning. I wore a simple blue dress that Ethan said brought out my eyes. The children stood beside us as we said our vows. Ryan looked uncomfortable in his new suit. Chloe kept fidgeting with her dress. Eli seemed fascinated by the judge's big leather chair. When the judge pronounced us husband and wife, Ethan kissed me gently. The kids applauded politely, like they'd been coached. Afterwards, we went to lunch at Denny's. Not exactly romantic, but it was the kids' favorite restaurant, and I wanted to start as I meant to go on, putting them first. That first night in our new house, Ethan's house that was now somehow mine too, I tucked them into bed for the first time. "Good night, Ryan," I said softly. "Night," he mumbled, not looking at me. "Sweet dreams, Chloe." She pretended to. "Be asleep. Sleep tight, Eli. Don't let the T-Rex bite." That got a small giggle, and my heart soared. Maybe this would work after all. The honeymoon period lasted exactly 12 days. That's when I tried to help Ryan with his homework and he told me I was doing it wrong. When I suggested Chloe might want to brush her hair before school and she burst into tears. When Eli had a nightmare and called for mommy, only to look heartbroken when I appeared instead. "They just need time," Ethan kept saying. "They just need to adjust." But as weeks turned into months, things got worse instead of better. The children had perfected the art of polite hostility. They said please and thank you. They ate the meals I cooked without complaint. They followed the household rules. But they shut me out completely. When I tried to join their conversations, they would suddenly stop talking. When I suggested family activities, they would look to Ethan with expressions that clearly said, "Do we have to?" The worst part was how different they were when Ethan was around. Suddenly, they were normal, happy children. They laughed at his jokes. They climbed on his lap. They chattered about their days at school. The second he left for work, they became strangers again. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. I would make breakfast, and they would eat it without acknowledging I existed. I would do their laundry, and they would take their clothes without a word of thanks, but I kept trying. I kept believing that love and patience would eventually win them over. I was wrong about that too. It happened on a Tuesday in March. I had been their stepmother for 4 months, and I was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually exhausted from trying to love children who seemed determined to hate me. I had planned a special dinner. Homemade pizza, their favorite. I spent the entire afternoon making dough from scratch, grating cheese, cutting vegetables. I set the table with the good plates and even bought flowers for a centerpiece. When they came home from school, I was so excited to surprise them. "What's all this?" Ryan asked, looking around the kitchen suspiciously. "I made pizza," I said. "I thought we could have a nice family dinner together." Chloe made a face. "I don't like vegetables on my pizza." "I made half without vegetables just for you," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. Eli climbed onto his chair and poked at a piece of pepperoni with his fork. "This doesn't taste right. It's homemade," I explained. "It might taste a little different than the frozen ones we usually have." "I want the frozen ones," he said, pushing his plate away. Something inside me cracked. Just a tiny fissure, but it was there. "Could you at least try it?" I asked. I worked really hard. On this, the three of them exchanged a look. One of those silent communications that children are so good at. Then Ryan, my serious 9-year-old stepson, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Why should we? You're not our real mom. You're just some lady dad married." The crack in my heart split wide open. Chloe nodded. "Our real mom made better food. And she was prettier," Eli added helpfully. I stood there, surrounded by my homemade pizza and fresh flowers, and felt something die inside me. Not my love for them, that was still there, stubborn and painful, but my hope, my belief that this could work. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'm not your real mom. But I'm the mom you have now, and I'm trying my best." "Well, your best isn't good enough," Ryan said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Toxic and choking. I looked at these 3 children I had rearranged my entire life for, and I made a decision that would change everything. "You know what?" I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "You're right. My best isn't good enough. But maybe that's not my fault. Maybe the problem isn't that I'm not good enough. Maybe the problem is that you've decided not to let me be." I started clearing the table, dumping my homemade pizza into the trash. From now on, things are going to change around here. I've been trying to earn your love, but I realize that's not how this works. You don't have to love me. But you will respect me, because I'm not going anywhere. The children stared at me in shock. This was not the pushover stepmother they had grown accustomed to. And tomorrow, I said, we're going to play a little game. I spent that night planning. I was done being the victim in my own home. It was time to take control. The next day, after school, I gathered all 3 children in the living room. We're going to play a game, I announced. What kind of game? Ryan asked suspiciously. I pulled out 3 notebooks and 3 pens. It's called the truth game. Each week, you're going to write down one thing you don't like about me. But here's the catch. You also have to write down one thing you appreciate about me. What if we don't appreciate anything? Chloe asked. Then you'll have to think harder, I said calmly. Because everyone has good qualities if you look for them. Eli raised his hand like he was in school. What happens if we don't want to play? Then you don't get allowance that week, I said. And no screen time. The children looked at each other. They were calculating whether their hatred of me was worth losing their privileges. Money won. Fine, Ryan said. But this is stupid. Maybe. I agreed. But we're doing it anyway. The first week's responses were brutal. Ryan wrote that he didn't like how I tried to act like his mother and appreciated nothing about me. Chloe said she didn't like my cooking and couldn't think of anything good to say. Eli drew a picture of a dinosaur eating me and wrote, I appreciate when you leave me alone. I read each one carefully and responded in writing. I thanked them for their honesty. I acknowledged their feelings. I told them it was okay to miss their mother and that I wasn't trying to replace her. But I also didn't back down. Week 2 was slightly less vicious. Ryan still had plenty of complaints, but he grudgingly admitted that I kept the house clean. Chloe said she didn't like how I sang in the morning, apparently I'm tone deaf, but appreciated that I always packed her favorite cookies in her lunch. Eli's note simply said, You know a lot about dinosaurs now? I had spent hours learning about prehistoric creatures just for him. By week 3, something was shifting. The complaints were becoming more specific and less personal. I don't like when you make me clean my room instead of, I don't like you. The appreciations were getting longer too. But the real breakthrough came in week 4 when Ryan got sick. He had a fever of 103 and was throwing up everything he tried to eat. Ethan was away on a business trip, so it was just me and 3 scared children. I spent that entire night in Ryan's room, putting cool cloths on his forehead, giving him small sips of water, holding a basin when he was sick. I didn't sleep at all. At about 4 a.m., when his fever finally broke, he looked at me with clearer eyes and whispered, Thank you. It was the first time he had ever thanked me for anything. That week, his note said, I don't like that you worry too much, but I appreciate that you took care of me when I was sick. Progress. The real turning point came in week 6, during what I now call the Great Spaghetti Incident. I was making dinner when Eli came running into the kitchen, crying hysterically. What happened? I asked, dropping my spoon and kneeling down to his level. Ryan and Chloe said I can't play with them because I'm too little, he sobbed. My heart broke. I knew that feeling. I had felt it every day for the past 6 months, being told I didn't belong, wasn't wanted, wasn't good enough. You know what? I said, wiping his tears. Sometimes big kids need to have their own time, and that's okay. But you know what else? He shook his head, still sniffling. Little kids get to have special time too. So while they're playing their big kid games, you and I are going to make the most awesome spaghetti dinner ever. Deal? He nodded, and we spent the next hour making a complete mess of the kitchen. We got sauce on the walls, cheese in our hair, and flour absolutely everywhere. But Eli was laughing. Really, truly laughing for the first time since I'd known him. When Ryan and Chloe came downstairs for dinner, they found us covered in flour and giggling like maniacs. What happened in here? Chloe asked. We made dinner, Eli announced proudly. And it's the best spaghetti in the whole world because Lily let me help with everything. That night, his note said, I don't like that you make me wash my hands so much, but I appreciate that you let me help cook and didn't get mad when I made a mess. But more importantly, Ryan's note said, "I don't like that you worry about us so much. But I appreciate that you made Eli feel better today." He had been watching. They all had been watching. The appreciations, meanwhile, became longer and more heartfelt. The real victory came in week 10, when I found a note that wasn't part of the game. It was on my pillow when I went to bed one night. 3 pieces of paper, obviously torn from the same notebook and written in 3 different hands. Ryan said, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Chloe said, "I'm sorry we were mean to you. You're actually pretty nice." Eli's was a picture of our whole family, with everyone smiling. At the bottom, in his careful kindergarten handwriting, he had written, "I love you, Lily." I sat on my bed and cried, but these were good tears. Healing tears. When Ethan came home from work that night, he found me in the kitchen with all 3 children, making cookies for tomorrow's school lunches. "What's all this?" he asked, the same question Ryan had asked about my pizza dinner all those months ago. But this time the answer was different. "We're making memories," Chloe said, grinning at me with chocolate chip-stained teeth. "And cookies," Eli added helpfully. "And a family," Ryan said quietly. 6 months after that first terrible dinner, we had our first real family meeting. Not the truth game, we had graduated beyond that, but an actual conversation about our future together. "I want to officially adopt you," I told the children. "If you'll let me." Not because your mother wasn't wonderful, she was. But because I love you, and I want to be your mom in every way that matters. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Eli launched himself into my arms. "Does this mean you'll be our mom forever?" he asked. "If you want me to be. We want you to be," Ryan said solemnly. "We've talked about it." Chloe nodded. "We were stupid before. We know better now." "You weren't stupid," I said gently. "You were hurt and scared and protecting yourselves. But you don't have to protect yourselves from me anymore." The adoption was finalized on a sunny day in September, almost exactly 1 year after Ethan and I met in that grocery store parking lot. As we left the courthouse, all of us carrying official documents that made us a real family, Ryan surprised me by taking my hand. "Mom," he said. It was the first time he had called me that. "Yes? Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we were terrible to you." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you for letting me prove that I belonged here." 3 years later, I'm sitting in the same living room where we played the truth game, watching my children, and they are truly my children now, get ready for school. Ryan, now 12, is patient and helpful with his younger siblings. He's the one who makes sure Eli has his backpack and Chloe remembers her lunch money. Chloe, 10 years old, chatters constantly about her friends and her art projects and her plans to become a veterinarian. She's confident and happy in a way that breaks my heart when I think about how withdrawn she used to be. And Eli, now 8, still loves dinosaurs but also loves to help me cook. He's my shadow in the kitchen, just like he used to shadow his siblings. They still test boundaries sometimes. They still get on each other's nerves. They're normal kids with normal kid problems. But they're mine. And I'm theirs. Last week, Eli brought home a school assignment where he had to write about someone he admired. He wrote about me. "My mom, Lily, is brave," his essay said. "She married my dad when we were mean to her, and she never stopped trying to love us even when we didn't love her back. She taught me that families aren't just people who look alike. Families are people who choose to love each other every day." When his teacher called to tell me about the essay, I had to pull over because I was crying too hard to drive safely. These children who once told me I was nothing, who called me just some lady dad married, had become my greatest teachers. They taught me that love isn't always immediate or easy. Sometimes love is a choice you make every single day, even when it hurts. They taught me that being a mother isn't about biology or blood. It's about showing up day after day, even when you're not wanted. It's about seeing potential in children who can't see it in themselves. It's about believing in a family even when that family doesn't believe in you yet. And most importantly, they taught me that sometimes the best revenge against people who underestimate you is simply refusing to give up. It's proving them wrong not through anger or punishment, but through persistent, stubborn, unrelenting love. Today, when people ask me about my children, I tell them I have 3 kids, not stepchildren, not adopted children. Just my children, because that's what they are. But in the end, we reminded each other what really matters. That love isn't about being related. It's about choosing each other, every single day, until choosing becomes second nature. The other day, I was at the same grocery store where Ethan and I first met. I was buying ingredients for Sunday dinner, a tradition we started after the truth game ended, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Excuse me, ma'am. You dropped this." I turned around to see a young woman, probably in her early 20s, holding one of my apples. She had kind eyes and a genuine smile. As I took the apple and thanked her, I thought about all the small moments that change our lives. A collision in a parking lot, a late-night phone call, a game that started as discipline and became healing. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us the most about love. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get the chance to prove that love really can conquer all, not easily, not quickly, but completely.